let's, it's just a couple minutes, but I don't want to start going in the opposite direction with that, because what happens is when I know that there's a lot more people coming, and there's still people coming, right? I know that there's probably 5 or 6 that are still on their way, then I feel like delaying, and then the meeting starts late, and then you guys know the meeting starts late, so they purposely come late. I don't want to stop. So let's kind of tighten up there. So what I want to talk about today is something that's been on my mind, obviously, because I feel that the attendance is not where it needs to be, the recruiting is not where it needs to be. And by the way, to the people who are, you consider yourself a good recruiter, you are a good recruiter if your recruits can turn into attendance. Okay? Even with the licensing, like there's a lot of people, organizations, even I will continue to say, yes, licensing is one of the most important metrics that come as a result of doing the right type of things with your recruits. But what good is a license if the person doesn't show up? I guess that's the question, right? Because only a percentage of licenses will produce and actually do anything. So is it going to be the ones that aren't showing up, or going to be the ones that are showing up? Always remember, in the orientation we talk about 20 percenters, right? You're looking for 20 percenters. So the other people are 80 percenters. If you get good at getting people licensed but no one's ever showing up, you're just building your 80% group, right? You want to look for people that are going to be in the 20%. Those are people that come in the business, they get licensed, and they show up, right? So it's not just about getting paperwork on people and getting them to pay $100. Now, like when I came into business 20 years ago, it was $200, right? And back then, $200 was today probably what, $400? So I was trying to get people to pay $400 to join. Now, 20 years later, you're getting people to pay $125, right? Which everybody has that, right? Everyone has a credit card. Everybody has that amount of money. That's like when I joined, asking someone for $20. It's not hard to get an IBA. What becomes challenging and what kind of really shows your skills, your leadership, your influence is telling people, stressing to people, reminding people how important it is to show up and get that mentorship, to get that energy, right? And then, of course, not just to show up, but to bring people with them. That is when your organization is going to explode, all right? So a couple things that I want to talk about that are very, very important. People talk about this concept of depth. And I want to, what is depth? So if Ray comes in the business, and this is him, right? He can recruit direct to him Mike and Susan and Todd and James and Brian and Jose, right? Every time you recruit someone direct to you, that's called going wide. That is a good thing. Now, if Jose recruits John, who recruits Xander, who recruits Adric, this is called depth. And both of those things have different effects. What do they say? Width gives you security, depth gives you, or is it the other way around, right? Width gives you, depth gives you security, width gives you profitability. Because if people direct to you, your spread is probably going to be the highest, right? You have the best relationship with them, whatever you want to say, and then, but the depth gives you the security. Because if you bring somebody in, I don't care how productive they are, if they don't have someone under them, then they're not really that secure. They don't have that true fear of loss, right? If Josh has Xander under him, he's always going to have in the back of his mind like, man, what if that guy becomes an RVP? I lose out. Yeah. That's how people think. That's how you want them thinking. That's why depth is very, very important, because people feel that fear of loss and they will not quit. So it locks people in. That's where the security aspect comes in. The other thing that gives us security and depth is what? If Ray hires Jose and then Jose hires Xander, and then Jose decides, I'm going to quit, guess what? He has some security there knowing that, well, Jose can quit, but now Xander's going to be direct to me.
Right.
And that's why a lot of people say it's not really that smart to work with individuals. You want to quickly turn individuals into teams of people because someone in that, after it all shakes out, is going to stay. Like I was talking to Adric the other day, I didn't know the history of him and Xander's relationship. He said, I didn't even know Xander like that. Right? So he moved here, he's living with someone, he actually didn't even know him like that. He said later on we realized that we had some commonalities in terms of where we grew up in high school and all that, but they were not like best friends. So Xander one day wakes up and he's like, hey, this is too much for me. I'm more of a 9-to-5er. I was born to be an employee. I'm okay with making mediocre money. And he starts saying all these things, right? That doesn't mean Xander's going to change his goals and dreams. What does he care what Xander's doing? Or Adric, right? Adric is not going to quit. What does he care? They don't even know each other like that. That's why depth is important in a sense. But here's another thing why recruiting people and going through people to get to another person, this concept, it's also more fun when you do it that way because your directs are going to be the most skeptical when you recruit them. If you're in like a lukewarm market and beyond. When you come in, like if you're new, right? What's your name?
Usher.
Usher? So with Usher, I know that your first 5 recruits are all going to be your really good friends, just like they were with me. So yeah, you're not going to get a lot of skepticism. But once you go outside of that really hot circle that you have, and you start to get into people that know you a little bit less, you get a lot of questions about Primerica. Does it work? Is it real? Is it commission? Why do I have to pay? That seems weird, right? Oh, I have to get a license now? I'm already in school, right? And you have all these questions, but what happens is when Usher comes in and he recruits his friend Mike, guess what? Mike already, when you bring Mike to me, guess what? He already knows a couple things. He knows he's going to have to pay money for a license. He knows that he's studying, so probably Mike knows that he's got to study too. And there's less friction there. Does that make sense? So when Mike comes in and I interview him, I'm already halfway there. So when you stay in that first layer, you're always dealing with the most skeptical people. When you go into the next layer, it gets a little bit easier. And then what happens is you recruit Mike, and then Mike recruits John. When John comes in, he's asking me, hey, when do I get to pay? Hey, they already told me I have my money, just let me know how to do it. And by the way, I talked to my mom, and she's willing to sit down with me also. The appointment is set, the money's ready to be paid, because the further you go into a warm market, things that were very unorthodox for the first person become expected for the people beyond. Does that make sense? So as you go from here to here, the business should get a lot easier, and it can. And if you have multiple people on your team doing that at the same time, it kind of takes a life of its own. So if you look at your business and you say, man, I'm trying to get 3 recruits. How do people get 20 recruits? It's because of that dynamic you got to get working for you, where it's people bringing people. And look, in your business, you have to have these types of stories. That I recruited Shondell recruited Usher recruited Adric recruited Xander, and Xander recruited Paco. You have to have stories like that. Because I've been in Primerica for a long time, I've been to a lot of meetings, and what they'll do in a lot of meetings, someone like a Bruce will stand up and he'll say, raise your hand if I recruited you directly, and nobody raises their hand. But raise your hand if you are direct to me, and everybody raises their hand, right? Because what? The people in between them quit. So if you don't have that dynamic going on of someone found someone, there's something broken in your system. There's something you're not doing. You're not communicating, recruiting early enough in the process. Does that make sense? Right? You have recruits, right?
Yeah.
Because Jen, we know, and you came from another recruit that's no longer here. That's why she has someone, because she recruited someone who recruited someone, and she's left with someone even though the other someone is not here.
All three of them actually.
Right? That is what you want to have going for you. That's how you're going to really build momentum. So again, if you're not doing that, the question is, what are we missing here? Are we recruiting people and only talking about going on appointments? Going on appointments is very, very important. But then building a team is very, very important too. See, we forget in the orientation, what do we say? We have to have 3 fronts moving at the same time. We got to have the licensing, we got to have the building a team, and we got to have the building a client base. And in the orientation, I used to say, I don't know if it's in the video, I would say, the mistake people make is they want to do 1 or 2 of the 3, but it doesn't work that way. You guys got to continuously tell the story. You can't have a team and a client but not have a license and legally operate. You can't have a license and clients, right, and then no one's there to serve them. And you can't have people to serve them and a license but no customers are walking in the door. You have to have all 3 going. It's you guys as leaders that have to press that upon people that we got to get all of these things going. And I see it with the younger teams, you're good at getting them to bring people, no one's going on appointments. With the older teams, I see you're getting them to go on appointments, no one's bringing people. You're not following the system, you're not maxing out the system. And here's the thing about recruiting, if you don't do it early on, and I'm as guilty as anyone else, because we're selfish, right? I know I'm good in the field, if you take me to go see your mom, we're going to close the sale, we're going to make money, that's so easy for me. But don't let the recruiting go by the wayside because it's not something that people easily pick up later on. If you talk to Sheila, she'll say, when I hear her talking to her recruits, she's like, don't be like me. I waited years before I started building a team, right? So she admits that. It's difficult. Now she's doing a great job with it. But that was 2 years that admittedly she missed out on. So we got to get people doing that very, very early on. Getting lists, getting them to bring people, teaching them how to invite, teaching people how to prospect, all the different methods of recruiting. They got to learn this stuff. And we have to talk more about that in training, okay? So, the next thing I want to talk about is, I believe in Primerica, this is something I used to say all the time, is something I believe myself, is that you are going to find what you're looking for. In life, that's true, and in this business, that's true. So sometimes we have to be more focused in terms of what we're looking for. We can't just say, I want to make money, I want passive income, I want to be successful in Primerica. As a goal setter, a seasoned goal setter, we know that that's not specific enough. So what are we actually looking for? You are looking for great people to join your business. Even that is vague. So I'm going to go through a couple things that I feel make up a good recruit. Number 1, we are looking for someone who is a center of influence. A center of influence. Now, when you read this in books or when you hear it in Primerica audios, you're thinking, you know, you want the chief of police. You want the person who runs the church. Yeah, in a perfect world, that is what you want. And eventually you will have people like that. But a center of influence, like Sheila wasn't running some big organization. She had a regular job and she was a mom. But you know what? She had credibility. And she had people that she had helped. And she had influence with people. And people came to her for certain things. And that's a center of influence. We couldn't attach a title to her and say, this is why. It's just the type of person that she was. Now, Shaq was a center of influence. He didn't have an amazing track record as you know, personally. He didn't have an amazing track record in school. He didn't have an amazing track record in sports. But he was a center of influence. He just had this quality that we call stickability. Where if he wanted to go play ball, he could get 20 people to show up. If he wanted to go to a movie, he could get 10 guys to show up. If he wanted a poker game, he could put it all together. Does that make sense? If he wanted to go on a trip, he could have a bunch of people show up. That's just something that he had a knack for. So when you recruit someone and it's like 5 weeks, they don't bring one person, well, that's okay. They need to be in Primerica therapy, meetings like this, and they need to get better, and hopefully you can become a center of influence, right? But you have to understand that these people are out there. You can bring them in, and they can just hit the ground running. Why are we talking about this? Because some of you guys think that a good recruit is just someone who can afford to pay $124. That's what your business has resorted to, and the very people that are laughing are the ones that are doing it. If you go for low-hanging fruit, right, that is what you are going to get. Right? That doesn't mean we don't try to recruit anyone, because the idea is what? Anyone can lead me to anybody else. So if anyone can lead me to anyone else, then technically I can recruit anybody, but again, am I getting them to lead me to someone else that has the qualities that I'm looking for? Because when I see people recruiting and everyone's young, or everyone's old, or everyone's this, or everyone's black, or everyone's Spanish, or right? That shows me that you are not running the right system. How could you not have diversity? That's one thing that Shaq and I never had, was a lack of diversity. In our first year of Primerica, yeah, we had a lot of young people. There was women, there was men, there was, yes, but we always had 2, 3, 4, 5 people, literally Richard's age, that would be sitting in the meeting, loved our meetings. So when you see people, and they have the same types of teams over and over again, a revolving door of the same types of people, what it tells me is that, yeah, this is how it starts, right? Like, good, you like recruiting and you want to run the high numbers, but you have to start to refine your thought process and start to attract different types of things, different types of people into your organization. And you want people that are a center of influence. And guess what? They may not join within 5 minutes of you meeting them. It doesn't mean that they're idiots. It doesn't mean that, they're not the right people. Sometimes it takes a couple more calls, a couple more meetings, a little bit more follow-up. You have to have a list where you are, what's the word? You're farming. Do you have a follow-up list? Do you only have a list of people that came and people that joined and people that are coming? Or do you have a list of people that are like, hey, this guy would be really sharp, it's just not right now, I'm going to keep following up. Right. Maybe he'll come to a bit. Jen's great at that. Come to a big event, come to a big event. We only see him at big events, then all of a sudden they get licensed. Good recruiters know how to farm. Right? So a center of influence is someone that can bring people, flock to them. They can bring people with them. How many recruits did that guy Ben in Arizona get for you?
Probably like 20.
This kid was a gamer, right? And he would sign on, maybe on Twitch or something like that. He would,
On TikTok.
huh?
TikTok.
On TikTok, and he would play video games, and people would come to watch. Well, you know what? That's a center of influence. Maybe you have somebody, there's someone I'm working with right now, he said, I'm financially successful, people come to me for financial advice, so it'll be very easy for me to set appointments. That's a center of influence. So that's something that people kind of miss, right? Like when you hear the audios, the old audios from Shaq Brett, when you hear the stories, that is something that they brought with them into the business. And we have to be looking for people like that. The other thing that we look for, if you talk to Shaq and I about, after we have an interaction with someone, when we say that someone is sharp, it is not because they're wearing a nice suit, it is not because they have a degree, it is not because they work for a good company, it's because they have good people skills. And we know what? If you have good people skills, that's going to take you a long way. Me, Shaq, and Brett, we were rough around the edges, but man, I had decent people skills, they had exemplary people skills. I would hear them. Shaq would go on it. He would do a one-on-one interview, cold as ice. He would follow up with the person a few hours later, talk to them like they were friends. And I listen to that and be like, man, how does he do that? Because he has good people skills. Or are you like, hey, what's going on? Yeah, I want to see if you're coming tonight. Okay. Did you bring somebody? Okay. That's how literally I hear people in this room talk to people like that. Oh man, this guy's so awesome. I just had a great meeting with him. Oh yeah? Tell me about him. Where does he work? Oh, I don't know. He's bilingual. Oh yeah? What country is family from? Didn't ask. What did you... Oh, you mean you just talked a lot. That's why they're sharp. Because you got to hear yourself speak. They had to sit through the whole thing. And man, this person was awesome. Why? Because they struggled through your 45-minute interview where you asked no questions.
That's funny.
Now I have to talk like this because I'm seeing the results and I'm like, all right, now this is actually like holding people back if I don't talk about this stuff.
Right.
Here, Jen, come up here. Okay. If I'm meeting Jen for the first time, okay, the mindset that you have to have is that this could be the LeBron James of my organization. So there's a couple ways I can say, hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Right? You guys know I'm introverted. I don't particularly look to meet new people, but when it comes to the business, I know how to introduce myself. I know how to have some freaking energy. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how are
Really
you?
nice to meet you.
Great, thank
How
you.
you
Nice
doing
to meet you too. I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Where'd you come from today?
DC.
Awesome. One thing you guys know about me is I'm always smiling. I will smile for no damn reason. Right? That's, now look, I got a little bit of the, if I'm just sitting by myself, a little bit of resting bitch face, I get that. Right? That's like, I maybe look mad, I look serious, I look and I know that. And there's been other times where when I come up to speak, I'm not Shaq, I'm not a comedian, right? I'm not, I have a different tone when I come up here. And that's why we're a good mix, because he does what he does, I do what I do. But if I meet someone new, right, I am genuinely happy to meet them. Maybe I've trained myself to be that way, I don't know, but like, it's an energy thing. You are transferring energy to people, man. You gotta be happy, you gotta be excited. Shaq always used to say, if you're depressed, why the hell would people want to join you? They don't want to be depressed. Can you laugh? Can you smile? Can you have a good posture? Can you give a nice handshake? Can you look them in the eye? Can you be happy and make them feel like this is something I want to be a part of? So we have to work on our people skills, especially in our interactions with clients and people. And then we look for people with great people skills because they are going to glide through this business. But again, those people aren't always the lowest hanging fruit. And I have one more thing here, which I'm not really going to expand on a lot, but this is what I'm telling myself, because I haven't been specific enough in what I'm trying to attract and what I am looking for. And now this says builders, right? We're looking for builders, man. We are looking for builders. Builders are people who want to recruit. They happily recruit. They don't, their fear of rejection is lower than most. They can bounce back a lot faster. And they have this ability, Shaq and I always talk about it, where they can always bring people. We know people that never used to make cold calls, but they could always have 2-3 guests at a meeting for years. Look at Sheila. She doesn't make cold calls. She doesn't call resumes. But I'll put her up against anyone in terms of guests to the op. Isn't that true, Shaq? Tuesday, when we used to actually come to Wednesday, Saturday, 2 people, 3 people, 2 people, 3 people, 2 people, 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, right? That's what you want. You want people that want to build, that want to bring, that are willing to run through the numbers. Not people who are just producers. You want to attract builders. I'm looking for builders, someone that wants to come in and go, someone who wants to know, how does the promotion guidelines work? How do I get from here to here? Doesn't want a shortcut. Wants to get some licensed agents under them. Wants to learn the metrics of recruiting and all that. So, I thought it was a very, timely and important talk that we're having today. And at the end of the day, it's all for your guys' best interest, right? We want to be an RVP factory where the types of things we're talking about, the types of things that we're doing, the example we're setting is helping you guys get to RVP. So you can have the life that we have, not so you guys are always in the crowd and we're the ones up here. But it all starts with putting that signal out there into the universe or whatever you believe in, right? That this is what I'm looking for. Those people will show up. You can't just be looking for sales or looking for just for someone to sign an application. You got to look further than that, and that's when you're going to find those people. Are you ready? All right, give it up for Shaq.